The Pacific Ocean in the winter of 1944 was a vast, restless expanse, its surface gleaming under a pale half-moon that cast a silver ribbon across the waves. The night was quiet, the wind a soft murmur over the water, the swells rising and falling in a rhythm older than war itself. To the sailors aboard a Japanese destroyer patrolling these waters, the scene might have felt serene, a deceptive calm masking the storm of conflict raging across the globe. But beneath the ocean's surface, a silent hunter waited, ready to strike. That hunter was the USS Archerfish, a Belleau-class submarine of the United States Navy, a sleek 311-foot vessel cloaked in gray, her conning tower a mere shadow when she surfaced, her periscope a faint ripple when submerged. Inside her steel hull, the air was thick with the scent of diesel, sweat, and machinery. Her crew moved with precision, their voices low, their focus razor-sharp. These men had been at war for years, but tonight felt different. Something extraordinary was about to unfold. At the heart of this moment stood Commander Joseph Enright, a 33-year-old officer whose calm demeanor hid a burning need for redemption. Enright carried the weight of past failures. On a previous command he had faltered, returning from patrol without firing a single torpedo, a mark of shame for a submariner in wartime. That failure had haunted him, leading him to request relief from command, doubting his own instincts. But now, in the dark waters south of Honshu, Japan, Enright was determined to prove himself. Standing at the periscope, one hand on the grip, the other clutching a rosary in his pocket, he felt the weight of responsibility. The rosary wasn't about piety. It was a quiet anchor for a man carrying the lives of his crew and the hopes of his nation. Hours earlier, Archerfish had been on lifeguard duty, poised to rescue American airmen from cancelled bombing raids. Now, free to hunt, her radar had picked up a massive contact 12 miles away, moving steadily southwest. The blip was no ordinary ship. It was enormous, escorted by destroyers, and Enright's gut told him this was a prize unlike any other. Could it be the legendary Yamato, Japan's mightiest battleship? Or something even more extraordinary? The crew worked silently in the control room, plotting the target's course with grease pencils, calculating angles and distances. Every move was precise, every moment critical. A single error could lose the target, or bring the wrath of the escorts down upon them. Inside Archerfish, the atmosphere was tense but disciplined. The crew lived in a world of tight spaces, where torpedo men slept beside their weapons, officers shared bunks in shifts, and every man knew his role by heart. The hum of machinery, fans, pumps, diesels, filled the air, mingling with the creak of the hull under pressure and the faint buzz of the radar. Tonight, every sound seemed amplified, every moment charged with anticipation. Enright had vowed not to hesitate again. Months earlier, over a poker game at Midway Naval Base, a senior officer had watched him bluff boldly and asked, "Joe, would you command a submarine the way you play cards?" Enright's answer, yes, had earned him this second chance. Now, that chance was about to be tested. What Enright didn't know was the scale of his quarry. The ship he was stalking was Shinano, a colossus of the Japanese Navy, a 71, 890-ton aircraft carrier, the largest ever built at the time. Conceived in secrecy, launched just days earlier, Shinano was a desperate gamble by a nation on the brink. She was unfinished, her crew untrained, her systems untested, yet she carried Japan's fading hopes of turning the tide of war. As the moon dipped behind a cloud, darkening the horizon, Archerfish's crew felt the ocean grow still, as if the sea itself were waiting. Enright peered through the periscope, catching the faint silhouette of the giant ship and her escorts. A destroyer veered toward them, and for a moment, it seemed the hunter had been spotted. But the destroyer turned back, rejoining its charge, and the opportunity held. "Stay with her," Enright whispered to his officers. "She'll zigzag, but we'll find her pattern." His voice was steady, but it carried a promise, to his crew, to himself, to his tarnished reputation. The clock neared midnight, and in the vast Pacific, a game of cat and mouse had begun, with the largest warship in history unaware that a lone submarine had her in its sights. By late 1944, the Second World War had turned decisively against Japan. The empire that once spanned from the Aleutians to Burma was crumbling. The Pacific, once a shield, was now a battleground where American forces advanced relentlessly. Island by island, Guadalcanal, Tarawa, Saipan, the U.S. closed in on Japan's homeland. General Douglas MacArthur had returned to the Philippines, fulfilling his vow, while Admiral Chester Nimitz's fleet steamed toward Okinawa. Japan's merchant fleet, vital for oil, food, and supplies, was being decimated by American submarines. Over half its cargo ships were gone, and the losses were irreplaceable. Factories slowed, fuel dwindled, and hunger gripped the home islands. Above, American B-29 bombers brought fire to Tokyo and Nagoya, their raids a grim promise of more to come. The Imperial Japanese Navy, once a titan of the Pacific, was a shadow of its former self. The Battle of Midway in 1942 had gutted its carrier force, and the Battle of Leyte Gulf in October 1944, the largest naval battle in history, had been a disaster. Carriers like Zuikaku were sunk, and the mighty battleship Musashi was lost to American air attacks. Japan's pilots, once the best in the world, were gone, replaced by novices with barely 50 hours of flight time. American pilots, by contrast, arrived with hundreds of hours of training, dominating the skies. Japan was running out of ships, men, and hope. Yet, in this desperation, Japan pinned its hopes on a single ship, Shinano. Born from the hull of a Yamato-class battleship, she was transformed into a carrier unlike any other. At 71,890 tons, she dwarfed every other warship afloat. Her armored flight deck could withstand 1,000-pound bombs, her hull was protected by 8-inch armor, and her hangars could hold 47 aircraft, with space for 70 more in crates. She wasn't built for offensive strikes but as a floating fortress, meant to repair planes, carry suicide weapons like Oka rocket planes, and anchor Japan's defense. In Tokyo, leaders dreamed she could halt the American advance, disrupt MacArthur's landings, or intimidate invasion fleets. But Shinano was a rush job. Her construction was plagued by shortages, conscripted labor, and skipped safety tests. She was a symbol of defiance, but one built on a shaky foundation. On November 28, 1944, Shinano set sail from Yokosuka Naval Arsenal, her massive hull slipping through Tokyo Bay under cover of darkness. Her crew, a patchwork of veterans and raw recruits, was unprepared. Many believed the ship was cursed, a rumor born from her catastrophic launch weeks earlier, when a dry dock gate collapsed, killing 17 workers and injuring dozens. Sailors whispered of bad omens, a dead albatross in the harbor, a ship rejected by the sea. Captain Toshio Abe, a no-nonsense officer, dismissed such talk, but even he couldn't ignore the ship's deficiencies. Only 8 of her 12 boilers worked, limiting her speed to 20 knots. Her radar was spotty, her anti-aircraft guns short on ammunition, and her watertight doors untested. Yet, orders were clear: sail to Kure, complete her fitting out, and become the symbol Japan needed. Escorted by 3 battle-worn destroyers, Isokes, Yukikes, and Hamakes, Shinano steamed south, hugging the coast to avoid American bombers and submarines. But the Pacific was no longer Japan's domain. American submarines prowled the waters, their wolf packs sinking convoys with ruthless efficiency. That night, 30 miles south, USS Archerfish was on patrol. Her radar pinged at 8:48 p.m., spotting a massive target moving at 20 knots. Enright, sensing a historic opportunity, ordered battle stations. The chase was on. Shinano's size and speed posed a challenge. Archerfish could barely match her 19-knot surface speed, but Enright gambled on her zigzagging to evade submarines, a tactic that slowed her progress. For hours, the submarine trailed, cutting corners on Shinano's turns, her crew pushing the engines to their limits. Below decks, the heat was stifling, men rotating topside for air. On Shinano, Captain Abe detected the submarine's radar signature and ordered evasive maneuvers, keeping his escorts close to avoid a wolf pack trap. But the zigzags cost speed, and Shinano's rushed construction began to show. A propeller shaft overheated, forcing a speed reduction to 18 knots, then 16. Electrical systems flickered, seams leaked, and pumps failed. The great ship was faltering under her own weight. By 2 a.m. on November 29th, Archerfish had closed to 7,000 yards. Enright submerged to radar depth, making his submarine nearly invisible. The crew tracked Shinano's pattern, predicting her base course of 210 degrees. At 2:56 a.m., a destroyer charged toward a suspected periscope, forcing Archerfish to dive to 150 feet. Enright held his nerve, resurfacing minutes later to find Shinano still in range, now just 4,000 yards away. At 3:15 a.m., the stars aligned. Shinano steadied on her course, broadside to Archerfish at 1,400 yards, a perfect shot. Enright gave the order. Fire 1. 6 Mark 14 torpedoes, each carrying 600 pounds of explosive, raced toward their target. On Shinano, lookouts spotted the torpedo wakes too late. The first hit near the bow, tearing a 20-foot hole. The second struck the engine room, killing dozens instantly. The third and fourth ripped through fuel tanks and fire rooms, flooding compartments. Shinano shuddered, but her size gave a false sense of security. Captain Abe believed her battleship armor could withstand the damage. He was wrong. The rushed construction proved fatal. Watertight doors failed, seams split, and flooding spread uncontrollably. Damage control teams, untrained and disorganized, worked at cross purposes. The ship listed 5 degrees, then 10, then 13. Aircraft slid across the flight deck, fuel trucks crashed, and chaos reigned. Archerfish dove deep to evade the destroyer's counterattack. Depth charges exploded, shaking the submarine, but poor Japanese sonar spared her serious damage. On Shinano, the situation worsened. By 8:30 a.m., the list reached 20 degrees. Captain Abe ordered preparations to abandon ship, hoping to beach her. But at 10:18, the list hit 35 degrees. Equipment and men slid into the sea. At 10:55, Shinano capsized, her hull rolling over before plunging 4,000 meters down. Of her 515 crew, only 1,080 survived. Captain Abe and his officers went down with her, singing Japan's anthem as the water closed over them. The sinking was a secret Japan couldn't afford to admit. Survivors were silenced, families told vague lies. American codebreakers learned of Shinano's loss but didn't grasp her scale until after the war. Enright's report claimed a massive carrier, but Navy intelligence credited him with a smaller ship. Only post-war records revealed the truth. Shinano was the largest warship ever sunk by a submarine, a testament to Enright's redemption and the power of the silent service. Shinano's story is a saga of ambition and failure. Japan dreamed of a superweapon to save an empire, but haste and desperation doomed her. For America, the sinking proved that skill and persistence could topple giants. It was David versus Goliath, a lone submarine against a floating fortress. Today, Shinano lies in the Pacific's depths, a reminder that size without preparation is weakness, that courage can redeem failure, and that in war, a single moment can change history. For the men of Archerfish, it was a night of triumph. For Shinano's crew, it was a tragedy of duty and loss. The sea, impartial, claimed them all, holding its secrets in the silence of the deep.